Hi, everybody. So after watching the second Republican debate last night, I had promised my followers beforehand I would be making videos about why I don't think you should be voting for each one of the said candidates. And after the debate last night and listening to the pundits on TV, I needed to start with Chris Christie because some pundits feel like he's getting some traction, he did well for himself. I'm going to tell you why you should never vote for Chris Christie. And it has nothing to do with his weight, though he is overweight. It has nothing to do with his bombastic behavior. It has nothing to do with him being a federal prosecutor, an ex-federal prosecutor, who feels that there isn't a problem this country can't arrest somebody over and arrest your way out of. It isn't over his support of the failed drug policy in the country. Though, in and of itself, those are all good enough reasons to not vote for him. I'm not going to get into those in depth. The one I want to get into, and believe it or not, he runs on this as his strength, is what he does with the schools in New Jersey. His fight with the teachers union, how he's taking on the teachers union, trying to save money and help the poor children of New Jersey by basically getting in the teachers' butts and trying to rework their contracts, their benefits, which I'm all for because, as you know, I believe teachers unions are bullies as well. They're, in my opinion, teachers are overpaid if you look at the hours they actually put in, what they're actually doing at work, and the fact that you can't fire them for anything. You can't fire them. They sit in a rubber room, usually for years and years and years at taxpayer expense. It's a huge problem, but that's not the major issue of why you should not vote for Chris Christie. In New Jersey, obviously, like all public schools everywhere in the country, you get government money, you get state money. In New Jersey, when you are an underperforming school, you become what's known as an Abbott district. And what that means is an Abbott district, usually in urban areas with predominantly Black, Latino, poor white, poor immigrants. But it's predominantly Black and Latino areas who underperform. These are underperforming schools in those areas, receive additional taxpayer money in order to be able to get these students up to a level where they're going to be able to compete out in the marketplace. That is, that is the idea behind Abbott school districts. Because again, we know in this country, there isn't a problem that a politician doesn't think they can just throw money at and it'll go away. But is that really the problem in the New Jersey educational system? Well, I'm going to show you why it's not. And I'm going to show you why these children are doomed to failure before they even walk into one of these buildings. And the answer is staring every politician, including Governor Chris Christie, right in the face, and they won't address it. You take us to school district in East Orange, New Jersey, and I'm going to put a link to it in the description box. Underperforming, urban area, mostly Black, Latino, poor white, and immigrant. Abbott district, meaning they're getting additional taxpayer money in computers and expense, and most of it goes to teachers' salaries anyway. And like I said, in and of itself, that's terrible. But you don't need to go any further than to stand in front of one of these schools and look at the names that are canonized on the front of these buildings to know where the problem lies. Now, I'm going to read off these names. I'm going to put the link in the description box, and you can see it for yourselves. Of the names that are on these public Abbott district schools receiving additional taxpayer funds. You have Benjamin Banneker Academy. He was a clockmaker. He was an early early turn of the century clockmaker, inventor, good, strong black person that you would want to put up as an example. No problem with that whatsoever. George Washington Carver, obviously, no problem. Then you get into the real cruxes of the matter. Johnny Cochran Academy, public school. The guy who got off, who many people believe is a double murderer. Mildred Barry Garvin School. Who's Mildred Barry Garvin? For even those of you outside of New Jersey don't know, she was a congresswoman, African-American congresswoman from 1977 to 1987 in New Jersey. Well, you would think, okay, great, black congresswoman, what's the problem here? Well, think of the political climate and what was going on in urban centers from 1977 to 1987. That is practically the height of failure when we saw the black father being pushed out of the house, where we saw income levels being dropped lower and lower, when we saw the urban centers, the ghettos, becoming worse and worse and worse and more and more and more dangerous. Great example to throw up on your building. One of my personal favorites, Whitney Houston Academy. Yeah, Whitney Houston. Now this isn't a knock on how she tragically died, that she had addiction issues. No, not at all. Tragic. She was a great entertainer, but she was an entertainer who is now canonized on an elementary school. You have Langston Hughes. He was a poet and a jazz musician. Are you starting to see a theme here? Poetry, jazz are great things, but they're entertainment. You have, you have Ecole Toussaint Louverture, who's credited with the liberation of Haiti. How's Haiti doing? Is this the person we want to canonize on an American public school? Great, you liberated Haiti. Now what? What does Haiti look like right now? I would say that's pretty much a state of failure. But no, we're going to canonize this person on the front of a public school. Mind you, that gets additional taxpayer funding. Gordon Parks Academy. That was the film director for the original movie Shaft in 1971. Public school, additional taxpayer money, the director of the movie Shaft. Cicely L. Tyson, but he pretty much knows that one. American actress, was basically best known for being married to Billy D. Williams. Lando Calrissian from Star Wars. Are we seeing a pattern here? And my personal all-time favorite, the Dionne Warwick Institute. Now that's not a knock on Miss Warwick, her music, or the Psychic Friends Network for that matter. But how the hell do you put these people's names on the face of your public schools? You are dooming these children to failure. A bunch of entertainers and cultural icons that have basically been created by an industry who we know hurts the fabric of America, hurts minorities ultimately. What they push, okay, what they make the minorities think is important, what they make American culture think is important as a whole, we know is hurtful, we know is harmful. Now you might be saying, well, gee whiz, it's important for poor blacks and Latinos and poor people to have examples on the front of their schools so they can have some pride. Absolutely, I agree. So what we are saying is we have no other strong examples of black leadership to put on the faces of our public schools, of our elementary schools, for these poor Black and Latino and poor white and poor immigrant. This is the best we have? It isn't. It isn't. Because most people won't know this. Do you know about the 23 Black congressmen and senators who were elected right after Reconstruction, after the Civil War? Have you ever heard the name Hiram Rhodes Revels or Blanche Bruce? No. Do you know why? Because they're Republicans. Republican, Mississippi, Revels, elected to the Senate from Mississippi in 1870. Bruce Blanche, Republican, Mississippi, elected 1875. 2 Black senators directly after Reconstruction. Have you heard of John Willis Maynard, Republican, Louisiana, sworn in 1868. Joseph Rainey, Republican, South Carolina, 1870. Jefferson F. Long, Republican, Georgia, 1870. Robert C. DeLarge, South Carolina, 1871. The list goes on and on. Benjamin S. Turner, Republican, Alabama, 1871. Josiah T. Wald, Republican, Florida, 1871, 1873, and 1875. Richard H. Kane, South Carolina, 1873, 1877. I'm not even bouncing around. John Adams Hyman, North Carolina, 1875. Charles E. Nash, Republican, Louisiana, 1875. John Mercer Langston, Republican, Virginia, 1890. George W. Murray, Republican, South Carolina, 1896. George Henry White, North Carolina, 1897. This is only a partial list. I didn't even read off all the names. So what do they all have in common? Why has nobody ever heard of them? Could it be the Republican after their name? And you would think, well, why wouldn't Christie bring this up, bring this to light? Because he's afraid to take on the real issue, that you are dooming these children to failure before they even walk in. Because here's the bottom line. The children or the people of that town don't decide what the names are. Some elected Board of Education official and a town council and a mayor does that. They name schools. All that goes through approval. And nobody stopped and said, hey, wait a minute. We are not ready. Nobody's ready. You don't see whites, you don't see Asians, you don't see white people putting entertainers on public schools. You don't see any other race doing that. You don't see any other economic class doing that other than outside of poor urban areas where you are now putting entertainers on public schools and nobody stops it. And this does fall at Chris Christie's feet. Okay, because those school names are readily available when they give funding. And that means not only does nobody pay attention, the same people who made the decision are the same people or the same mentality that put it there to begin with. Nothing changes. So don't believe Chris Christie when he tells you he's a fighter, he's going to stand up to people. He can't stand up for what's right in his own school system. He'll conflate the issue. He'll go after the teachers union, rightfully so, because teachers unions are bad anyway, and they protect a lot of bad teachers. But you can't get to the teachers union, okay, when the first thing that a child sees when they walk through the door is the Dionne Warwick Academy, the Johnny Cochran School, the Whitney Houston School, schools named after a bunch of social icons and entertainers. You are dooming these children to failure before they even walk through the door. And nothing's changed, and the same people are still there because nobody's changed it. Nobody's changed it. So, should you vote for Chris Christie? Absolutely not. Solly Matthews, Generation X Politics.